Zaldrizes buzdaris gosdau.
One of the most interesting moments from Fire and Blood is the Dragonseeds, the taming of the Dragonseeds, when random people, although they're Valyrian bastards, they're called Dragonseeds, they're treated a lot better than fisher folk and regular citizens and stuff like that at King's Landing. They're sort of nobodies, right? And then they're given the chance to claim a dragon and join the war. It's amazing. Like, just imagine you're sitting there minding your own business with your silver gold hair, and you're like, yeah, I look different than all you guys, but I don't have any money. So really, this is kind of just like a thing like, oh, I descend from dragons, but I don't know which Targaryen or which Valyrian I descend from. So, oh, little old me, right? And then all of a sudden, Rhaenyra, Daemon, Jace shows up, and they're like, we need you to join our army. Right, so that's what happens with the Dragonseeds, and in this video I want to talk about some leaks that I have not mentioned about what's going on when they were filming these scenes just a few weeks ago. Also, if we have enough time in this video, I want to answer a few of y'all's questions. Real quick, before I jump into that, do me a massive favor and subscribe. Subscribing is one of the best things you can do to anybody you're a fan of here on YouTube, so if you haven't pulled the trigger, please go ahead and do so, and also, slap a like on this video. Like goal is going to be 420. If you enjoy. Okay, so I've been sent some DMs over on Twitter. Speaking of which, please go follow me at Sir_Hunts or at Mr. Westeros. I know I'm showing you here that my username is Dragon Daddy, but it's actually not. I changed it to Mr. Westeros. That's the name of my second channel as well. Please go subscribe there if you want. Alright, so this person mentions that almost every single person that seems like they're important, right? So, like, this person says there's 15 people that are proposed first that have, like, the strongest, this is for the TV show, right? This is obviously not Fire and Blood, because what happens in Fire and Blood is named individuals go and claim dragons, and we're just told, yeah, a bunch of people die in the process of that. This person mentions that the show is going to be visualizing that, right? So the first set of Dragonseeds are going to be told, hey, go and try to claim a dragon, right? And when they do, they all die horrifically. Like, this person mentions it's a montage of terrible deaths of, like, 1,000 ways to die, but just by dragon. So that'll be interesting if that's true. Obviously, remember, take all of this with a grain of salt, because it's all a load of horse crap, and nothing is confirmed until it airs on our screens, right? So this person says that they will have a little over 25 extras, so maybe like 30 extras, who all claim dragon blood, and a lot of them die. Like, this person mentions that there's a scene in which, in particular, Adam Velaryon claims sea smoke, and the scene happens after a lot of the Dragonseed claiming stuff. But Rhaenyra takes Adam of Hull claiming sea smoke as confirmation that clearly Rhaenyra is dead, because she knows that no dragon can have two riders while the previous rider is still alive. Like, it's kind of a mystery. In my opinion, it's confirmed, like, one person, one rider, like, you can only ride one dragon. That dragon dies, that's it. You can't go claim another one. I feel like the evidence is there, because guess what? No Targaryen has ever done that. Although the idea was proposed on this TV series. Remember, Daemon says to go and claim Vhagar in the early episodes, right? But my opinion, one dragon, one rider per life, right? The dragon can have several riders, but the previous rider has to die. So this person mentions that there's a scene when Adam claims sea smoke. Rhaenyra takes it as confirmation that Rhaenyra's dead. They mention in, like, parentheses that there's some subtext of Daemon's conversation with Rhaenyra hinting at the fact that he had Carl Corey take care of Rhaenyra. Like, Daemon knows for sure that sea smoke is dead, and he may even influence Adam and Alan, because remember, this is before Alan doesn't, like, figure out he's not going to get a dragon, right? So just Adam of Hull has a dragon. But before Adam claims sea smoke, like, the person mentions that Daemon has a scene with him saying, hey, you two, right, you Velaryon bastards, Daemon doesn't know this yet, but y'all should try to go claim sea smoke, as sea smoke has already been mounted before, right? And some of the other dragons that have killed these Dragonseeds are wild dragons. So since sea smoke has been tamed and previously ridden, y'all should go try to check out that one, right? And Rhaenyra takes that as Daemon knowing that Rhaenyra's dead, and there's, like, a scene involved in that. Like I said, it's a load of nonsense. Take it with a grain of salt. And another scene that supposedly happens is that Rhaenyra after the initial first wave of Dragonseeds dies, decides to give like a speech, and she notices Nettles kind of fidgeting and nervous, and I guess she sees a bit of herself in Nettles because Nettles is young, and she just gives her a tip by saying, so I guess Daemon and Rhaenyra, this person's getting that Daemon and Rhaenyra are sort of picking out who they think will ride and trying to help them, who they think will be successful in mounting a dragon, rather, and Rhaenyra supposedly tells Nettles that dragons are, quote, more cooperative on full bellies. And she says this after what happens to Silver Dennis, supposedly. So I do have a leak with Silver Dennis, but I just want to explain what happens in the book. So in the books, this starts all the way at the Great Council 101 AC. Remember that the opening scene of House of the Dragon, right? At that Great Council, at Harrenhal, there's this dude who supposedly is a bastard of Maegor. So at this time, Maegor had been dead for quite a while, about 60 years, and Maegor married over 10 women who were extremely fertile and never supposedly produced an heir, right? A lot of them were killed by, his concubine, right? So, all that being besides the point, there's another dude, right, 30 years in the future, named Silver Dennis, who claims to descend from Maegor. Like, it's not specifically mentioned if he descends from the guy that went to the Great Council at 101 Harrenhal and tried to make a claim for the Iron Throne because he says he's the bastard son of Maegor the Cruel, right? It doesn't say that particularly Silver Dennis descends from them, but Silver Dennis is like one of the main upfront Dragonseeds, and he's got a couple of his sons with him. So what happens is he goes and tries to claim Sea Smoke. The Sea Smoke rips Silver Dennis's arm off, and then Silver Dennis's sons rush in to try to staunch the bleeding. And when they do that, this dragon known as Cannibal swoops in from out of the sky and devours all of them. Right? So that is what happens in canon. Now this person mentions that this scene that was filmed is extremely book accurate. Right? They said, let's just take it with a grain of salt. They said that Silver Dennis tries to claim Sheep Stealer, and instead of his sons sort of waiting around, this person says his sons are involved. They throw a net over Sheep Stealer, and this is when Silver Dennis tries to rush in to jump on the back of Sea Smoke, and this is where he has his arm ripped off. And once he has his arm ripped off and he's out, or he's laying on the ground bleeding out, his sons with the net try to rush over to him to help him, but they get tripped up in the net and sort of trapped underneath it. And this is when Cannibal, who's been lingering in the background, like as a background shot, kind of like Vhagar. The person said it's kind of like Vhagar from Storm's End, right? In episode 10, when Lucerys realizes, oh crap, Aemon's here. Look at his dragon. It's the size of this castle, right? So Cannibal is off in the distance, right? Minding its own business, just being wary. And it sees what happens and then swoops in and eats Silver Dennis and his bastards. I'm going to leave it right there. I included my thoughts along the way. Let me know what you think down below in the comment section, please. To reiterate, the scenes, right, that were filmed were supposedly there's 25 extras who will all die. Most of them will just be ripped up and burned to shreds, or ripped up to shreds and burned to all heck, right? And that's going to be like a montage scene that happens. Then there's going to be another wave of dragon riders, and these are the ones that are going to be successful, right? So in that wave, we have obviously the scene with Silver Dennis and Nettles, and then we have Off-White, Hugh Hammer eventually claiming their dragons as well, right? Obviously Adam of Hall. When Silver Dennis's arm is ripped off by Sea Smoke, the scene that happens after that is Rhaenyra goes up to Nettles, who notices Nettles like just nervous and kind of wants to leave. But what motivates Rhaenyra is that obviously she needs more dragon riders, so she goes up and gives Nettles a tip, right? And that dragons are far more cooperative on full bellies, right? And obviously what happens in canon is Nettles uses sheep or mutton to grow close to Sheep Stealer before eventually mounting it. Like, Nettles will go out and feed pieces of food, specifically mutton, sheep, that's dragon's favorite food, right? Feed it to the dragon. The dragon goes accustomed to her presence, and then she mounts it. And that's kind of like what Targaryens do. Like, they have the dragon eggs in their cradle, and the dragon grows accustomed to their presence, and then when they mount it, it's no big deal because they've spent so much time with the dragon, right? So Nettles is told by Rhaenyra to feed her dragon, make it more cooperative. Silver Dennis' scene is extremely accurate. He gets his arm ripped off. His sons get trapped up in a net. Then supposedly Cannibal comes down and devours them. And remember, Ryan Condal has said that we're going to be seeing the wild dragons on this show. And then another leak scene was, this person mentions that Adam, when he claims sea smoke, Rhaenyra takes it as confirmation that Rhaenyra died. But there's a scene in which Daemon tells Adam and Alan that it's better for them to try to claim a dragon that has already had a rider, because that dragon is more than likely to bend its neck so that they can mount him. But like I said, let me know what you all think down below in the comments section. Take all of this with a grain of salt. Nothing is confirmed till it airs on our screens. Alright, so I've pre-selected 5 questions I want to answer. The first one is from Boss Kong -LO8RI, and they said, why would you care about the book and the show being the same when the book are you kidding me? They go on to say, when the book is written by people who claim to be there, they wouldn't know every single thing these people did. Okay, so I need to reread that. What? They wouldn't know every single thing these people did when the book is written by people who claim to be there. You mean who weren't there? So that's rhetoric that I see getting repeated online a lot. So Archmaester Gildane is the main narrator of Fire and Blood. This dude, George, the author of the series, has changed around canon a little bit, but Archmaester Gildane lives into the reign of King Robert I. And the reason why George did that was so that all of Archmaester Gildane's writings can cover the entire history of the Targaryen reigns. So Archmaester Gildane, in historical canon, writes Fire and Blood Volume 1, and when Volume 2 comes out, Archmaester Gildane will write that as well. And he actually lived and witnessed the later Targaryen kings. Obviously, he was one of the last maesters to serve at Summerhall, which is this Targaryen summer home, so to speak, right? So that narrator, yes, was not around when that happened. He uses most of the writings of Grandmaster Munkin, who in canon, in history, in like the world of Ice and Fire, wrote this book called The Dance of the Dragons, A True Telling, right? And then also, Gildane bases his narration off of Mushroom, who was there, who lived through all the events of Fire and Blood and was there. And yes, he had some salacious claims, but also he was physically there and lived past those events, right? So Munkin, right, along with Grandmaster Orwyle, along with, obviously, Mushroom, are a pretty good source for what happened during the dance. So people saying that, like, oh, you should just forget the book and this show is a whole new thing. No, don't have that thought. That is extremely stupid, and that's what happened at the later seasons of Game of Thrones. Dan and Dave kind of had that idea because they cut so much from the story. They were like, we don't need this book. We're better than this book. And guess what? It failed miserably. Miserably. They didn't know what they were writing because they didn't pay attention to it and they didn't respect it enough. So that comment, I'm sorry, needed to be addressed. Do not have that idea. Don't say that. Quit saying that. The book is God when it comes to this TV series. If they want the show to be successful, follow what God says, right? Fire and Blood. Just add stuff to it. Take away stuff that isn't as good as it can be, right? But don't change it. Don't change it entirely. And don't think, like this commenter thinks, that it doesn't really matter. And the next comment comes from a username Michelle Dennis2339, and they said, oh my god, I heard Joffrey say in Game of Thrones that she dies in King's Landing, referring to Rhaenyra, and her son watched, so why would he say that if it didn't happen there? Well, kind of like I was just saying, Dan and Dave didn't respect the canon. Like, we knew that Rhaenyra gets fed to her dragon in Dragonstone because she goes back there. Since Princess and the Queen, since World of Ice and Fire comes out, they knew for a while, right? And also, they have this dude named George R. Martin to confirm things with. I think, if anything, it's a show canon error, meaning that Joffrey didn't really know what he was talking about. He just assumed that Rhaenyra and Aegon II being king and queen or whatever would be in King's Landing, and that would happen here, right? So, in reality, Rhaenyra pays for her passage back to Dragonstone with her father's crown. I have a theory about it being really a faceless man being paid to kill King Aegon too, but she goes back to Dragonstone thinking she's gonna be able to be safe, and Aegon too, who has been missing for all this time, has like literally sat the throne at Dragonstone, and when she gets there, all of the people that she left in charge are dead, and then she sees Aegon, and Aegon feeds her to his dragon, Sunfire. So I think that was just a mistake, Joffrey, in canon universe mistake. And the next comment comes from RKDC2ES, and they said, hey man, try using a script. First off, I like the profile picture. That's Rocky Horror Picture Show. I grew up watching that show live every Friday night. It's obviously a reacting of it, but I would watch it every Friday night. It's like $10 to get in. Rocky Horror Picture Show live. It was at this little theater off of Glenwood Avenue in Raleigh, and I probably went there like 30 times total, right? But it's really cool because the actors are interactive, and they come out in the audience, make you do the the pelvic thrust dance if it's your first time there or whatever. So like your profile picture, but I don't like using a script. What I've done is, I feel like some people like it, right? But what I've done is I've read the book 7 times. So since I've done that, I feel like I know the world enough to not ever have to write a script unless there's some information that I forget, right? So that's my style. If you don't like it, there's plenty of people here on YouTube that use scripts, and in my opinion, it's kind of obvious. They can sound monotone. And I'm not a big fan of that, although a lot of people are. A lot of people think I'm too hyper in my videos, and they prefer monotone. So to each his own. Either way, thank you for leaving that comment, RK. Now the next comment, the second to last one, comes from LovePrew1, and they said, it's no way it's an accident. The only way that it's an accident is if Blood and Cheese went there to kill Aegon, but find his son instead. So that's in reference to Blood and Cheese being an accident, meaning that they meant to kidnap Jaehaerys, who's the heir to King Aegon II, but instead of kidnapping, they accidentally kill him. So that was just a leak. So I'll say this again. Don't trust the leaks. Take it with a grain of salt. The only reason why I make content, make videos on them, is because it's entertaining as hell. It's one of the ways I get through what I call the long night, which is a wait in between seasons for any Song of Ice and Fire show. Specifically, I started it with Game of Thrones, but I'm now continuing that with House of the Dragon. So take those with a grain of salt. We'll see what happens when it airs on our screens. Now, this last comment comes from a username Jon Sinatra 1443, and they say, Jon Snows Parents is a mystery in the book. And think about this. In Ned's chapters, he said he hasn't thought of Rhaegar in years. How do you not think about a dude when you're raising his kid? Shaking my head. Jon's parental reveal will be the biggest surprise in years. No. That doesn't work, all right? In my opinion, Ned not thinking about what happened with Rhaegar and his sister Lyanna is a classic form of like boxing off and repressing or suppressing memories, right? And the only reason why he's confronted with thinking about those things is because Jon is coming of age. He's leaving Winterfell. People could die. He could die. He could never see these people again. So of course he's going to think back on that repressed memory. You got to realize he held his sister in her last dying moments, and she made him promise that he would pretend that Jon Snow is his son and raise him as his own. So if that's the entirety of the memory that he supposedly didn't think of in years, right? Rhaegar is a small piece of that. Rhaegar is kind of just the sperm donor. Rhaegar doesn't really have anything to do with Ned Stark aside from him kidnapping his sister, or at the very least, contributing to the fact that Ned Stark's older brother Brandon and father are now dead. Robert's on this rebellion. Ned Stark's forced to do all these terrible things, and guess what? Now his sister's dead. So of course he's not going to think of a dude who did all that to him in 15 years. Thank you for trying, but you need to come harder if you want to disprove Rhaegar plus Lyanna equals Jon Snow. Well, alright, I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please stop a like on it. Like goal is going to be 420. And then also, consider checking out my Patreon over on patreon.com. In the next few weeks, I'm going to be revamping it like crazy, but specifically super special shout out to my Dragon tier members. They are all executive producers of this video. In specific, those members are the North Must Remember, right? Breanne Johnson, Tyler Schnabel, and Destiny Mixed Queen Phillips 420. Without their support, these videos wouldn't be possible. So thank you to them, and thank you for watching. Along that, until